Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Jafo Paints. Today we're painting another massive darkness figure. By request on Discord, we chose a greater roaming monster, and we're going to do the Hellephant from the new Bloodmoon Assassins versus Hellephant. I've gone ahead and primered this guy in our Citadel Mechanicus Standard Gray. Here we have a pot of it just in case we need to touch it up. So we primered the whole thing in gray. So that's what we're going to do. We'll quickly go over all the paints that we're going to use for this. We're going to use Retributor armor. We'll probably going back to our Mechanicus Standard Gray. The Retributor armor is a gold color. We're going to use that to cover up the big Buddha head and his bracelets. We're going to use XV88 as our browns for the leathers on his cloak. We're going to start with a base of xandrie dust on all of his tusks and talons. And finally, for his jewelry around his neck, we'll start with some wog flesh, a green colored. Then the plan, in good old Jafo style, we're going to shade with Nuln Oil all over the body. And probably a little bit of Agrax Earthshade. That's going to go over the tusks, the talons, and any of the gold. We're then going to come back and we'll do some highlighting with some greens on the necklace to bring that up. A couple of grays here, Storm Vermin and Dawnstone. Those will bring up our grays on the body. Some Liberator gold will bring up the gold on the all the metal jewelry. Ushabti bone, and possibly even another highlight of Praxeti white, a dry brush of Praxeti white over the tusks and talons to bring those up into that white elephant looking look. And finally, once we get towards the end, we're going to take a base of Balthasar gold. We're going to put that over all of the gemstones, like this one right here, and use some Spirit Stone red to make those gemstones look like gemstones. And I happen to misplace colors. We got one more color that we need yet today, Mephiston red, and that's going to just go in the small spaces like his little demon eyes. He is a Hellephant after all, so we need to give him that little demonic look. Alright, so we're going to begin using our medium base brush here. Again, as you guys know, I'm a Citadel Miniatures and Citadel Paint fan. So the first thing we're going to do, and I realize the Mechanicus Standard Gray primer and the Mechanicus Standard Gray base coat are not a 100% one-for-one match. So I do have a little bit of discoloration here. So if you can see in the camera, I had to touch up where I didn't prime well. Right here versus right here don't look the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over all of his skin with the Mechanicus Standard Gray base coat and just kind of liven that up a little bit. As always, you want to make sure that your paint is thinned down so that you get a smooth, even coverage so that it flows easily into all of the surfaces. This time you don't have to be very careful about what you're doing. You can just kind of slop it on. You just want to make sure that you're getting full coverage over the entire model. Alright, now that we've gone through and we've given him a nice base coat of Mechanicus Standard Gray over our primer coat of Mechanicus Standard Gray, and that's just so that we don't have issues with the blending. Of course, as I say that, I miss a spot on the back and I realize it, so we'll quick get that for you guys, show you up, make sure that you see where I missed. Alright, there we go. Of course, you see everything that I fail at. This is what happens when you try to paint when you're in a hurry and you're trying to film a video. So when you guys are filming your own videos at home and showing me how you paint, make sure you take your time. A couple of spots here. You want to make sure you get good even coverage everywhere and on every spot that you want of this color. So the next color that we are going to move to, we're going to do some Retributor armor. We're going to do all the grays. I'm going to use just because I like the control, I'm going to use my small layer brush. I already got some down on my palette. And where we're going to put that We're going to put that all over the face here. I'll start showing you there. And then we're also going to do it all over the jewelry around his arms. Now you do want to be a little bit more careful so that you don't get this on the gray that you've already done. Alright, with most of the Retributor gold done, this guy is really starting to pop. So now what we're going to do, and I say most because other places that I think I'm going to put the gold is the emblazoned letters that are up and down the words that are hard for me to speak. Fuck me sideways. Now with the Retributor mostly done, he's really starting to look pretty amazing, and actually this would be an okay spot to stop, and it would just throw a little bit of extra shine onto your table, but of course we're going to keep going. I do say Retributor almost done because of the lettering that is on the straps of his cloth. I think it's going to be easier if we paint the leather brown first before we add that. And the exampling that I'm using here is right here. So we've already gone ahead and got our XV88 ready. It is our leather brown that we're going to use. We're using our medium base brush because we do have to get a lot of area covered and we don't want to take all day doing this. So we're just going to go through and get this all painted. I'm going to paint this all leather. You do want to make sure you take your time around, and if you need to, go ahead and switch to your small layer brush to get up and around the big metal skull that's on his chest. With the leather done, I went back in and I painted in the gold lettering that goes down the straps, and touched up anywhere that the gold missed. The next thing I'm going to move to is xandrie dust. That's we're going to do the bone that is the tusks, and while it shows a white on him, I think we're going to do more of a bone, and we'll bring that up a little bit into the white. So we're going to do the tusks and the fingernails, and I'm going to switch back and forth between, in fact, you know, no, I'm going to just do it all in the small layer brush. That way I have the most possible control on my paint. We're just going to start. We want to start painting here, and again you want to get careful when you get close to the skin so that you don't get this on the skin. You want to do that there, you want to do the tusks there, you want to do the trunk tusk there, anywhere that the bone obtrusions are coming through. And with that, we've got the bone added to it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to switch over to our wog flesh, that is our green base tone, and we're going to paint up the prayer beads. So this one I'm going to right away go with my small layer brush so that we have complete control over everything. And you just want to get in there and get all of your prayer beads. And with that, the prayer beads are done. Also, while I was doing that, I decided to grab some Screamer Pink and just paint the inside of his mouth. However, I treated the protrusions underneath the lips as a form of teeth, so I went back and I painted those in xandrie dust to give them that bone color. And with that, our Hellephant bases are pretty much almost done. This would be a good time if you wanted to stop, and it would make a good model for your tabletop. It would bring a lot of life to your game, I think. He looks amazing. But in true Jafo style, we're not done. So now it's time to step it up some. And actually, before we get that far, I realized he's got spiky protrusions out of his back. So we're going to go back through and we're going to quickly paint those up with our bleach bone as well. Alright, now that we've got our base coats all done, it's time to add some shades. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to go to our, if I can push the Hellephant out of the way a little bit, we're going to use the Null Oil. That is our dark black, or our black shade. We're going to do an all-over body wash. As you see here, I did pick out the bones on the back. We're going to do an all-over body wash. All of his skin is going to get it, as well as all of the leather is going to get it. We're going to skip over, and we'll show you the next one is going to be Agrax Earthshade. That we're going to use all on the tusks, the bones, and everything that is that bone colored. And I did realize I needed one more color as I reach into my bucket to grab it. We're going to take a Reichland flesh shade. That's got a slight reddish hue, and we're going to put that all over the gold, and it's just going to make that gold pop even more than it already does. So we're going to get down, start doing that, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Now with your shades applied and dried, it has given a lot of definition to our model. You can actually start to see a lot more of the folds in his body. Looks great. A tip though, you do want to make sure that you're catching where any of your shade is pooling and prevent it from pooling in places you don't want to. But now that it's dried and has brought a lot of definition to our model, it is now time to try and highlight some of that brightness back up. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to dry brush with a 50-50 mixture of mechanicus standard gray and storm vermin fur, and we're going to do that on an all-over dry brush on his skin to bring out the just the highlights of that. I'll get my paint ready and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm doing. There you go. If my camera would sit still for more than a second, we've got our 50-50 mixture. I did like 2 blobs of mechanicus standard gray and 2 blobs of storm vermin fur, a little bit of water to wipe that down. We went and got ourselves some paper toweling, because what you're going to do with dry brushing, again, you're going to load some paint on your brush. You do want to get most of that off, and you're looking to wipe most of that off so that when you go across, say, your fingernail, you just get a very minor bit. So we're going to take that on top of our guy here and just go back and forth, and it'll pick up all the highlights, all the high spots on his body, and it'll just make him shine a lot better. So there we go. That's what our pretentious pachyderm looks like after our first round of dry brushing. And now we're going to go on with a second round of dry brushing. What I've done is I've added 2 more blobs of storm vermin fur to our paint palette here. So we get paint that looks something like that. It's a little bit lighter. We're going to do the same thing. This time we're going to focus a little bit more where we think the light's going to hit. So a little bit more like his upper ridges of his brows, maybe the tops of his ears, into his upper knuckles here. Just anywhere that you think. You just want to do the same thing as we've done before. Get a little bit of paint on there, dry it off so you're mostly gone. And then we're going to back and forth. Lift that camera up a little bit so you guys can see what I'm doing. You just want to pick out the high spots with this. This is the brighter gray. So we're just going to get a little bit here and there. And when we finish it up, we'll show you what it looks like. Alright, with that second dry brush, we pretty much have our wonderfully demonic elephant done. We are going to switch over now to our other gray that I told you we were going to use. We're going to use our Dawnstone. Now, if we look at his card, I thought this was a little bit weird, but if we look at his card and we look right there, all of the roping on him is gray. And while that's not a color choicing I would have gone with, as you see it's here, I think to help pick it out, we're going to use our Dawnstone. And with our small layer brush, we're just going to kind of go in and pick out the details of that roping. And I think that'll help make that rope a little bit more defined. And stick out away from the skin. We're also going to go through and just at the tips of his ears, right here, put a little bit of highlight as where the light would hit it. So you can see right there, just kind of like a little bit of an edge highlight, kind of gives that there. So we're going to go paint that rope and we'll be right back. Alright, now that we've got the Dawnstone applied, let me get that focus a little bit better there. It brings out a lot of the definition of that rope, and I guess it's not too bad looking. So that's what we got there. Now we're going to move on to the Ushabti bone. That is our lighter bleached bone color, and we're going to put that on all of our tusks. So we're going to go there, but we only want to go about half to 2/3 of the way down on this. And you're going to probably need multiple thin coats, as this is a cream white color and a little bit harder to get through. I'll be right back. With that, we now have a lot of definition to our bone and our tusks and talons. So the next step, we're going to switch over to gold. Always sticking with our ever popular small layer brush, we are moving into Liberator Gold, and we're just going to do some little bit of edge highlighting around the face and around his bracelets, and just make that gold pop a little bit more. As previously, always thin down your paints. They help them flow smoother. And I lied, we're not going to do edge highlighting, we're just going to kind of highlight the whole thing. Leaving the dark recesses, the gold and the red. And we'll show you what it looks like in a minute. And with the highlighting of the gold, we then are going to move to a real quick stop in the red, using our Mephiston red. And the way I do my eyeballs, I water it down real well so that it's almost like a glaze. And we're going to get right on in there. Just going to get a drop on each eye. Just like that. And that just gives him that little bit of a hellscape look that he has. Do that again on the other side. And there we go. Real minuscule detail, but it does bring a little bit of life and energy to that model. Now he just looks that much more. Only got a couple more details to go. The next thing we're going to work on is our green. We're going to do a 50-50 for the prayer beads. We're going to do probably one blob of Lauren Forest and one blob of Moot Green to start with. Alright, so we got a slimy, gross-looking green mixture like that. And we're going to apply it daintily, as it were, to our prayer beads. Like that. And that is just going to bring some of that life to those beads and make them stand out. I'll be right back. So there's the first layer done. The next layer that we're going to do, we're going to add another scoop of our Moot Green, and it's going to make it a little bit brighter. And we're going to just go over the tops of those again. And it's going to bring a little bit more brightness to those orbs of his prayer beads. And that almost finishes up our dude. So just like that, now we've got a nice bright prayer beads. And the only thing we have remaining to do is we're going to do our Balthasar gold, and then finally our Spirit Stone red for the gems on his mask. Alrighty, now that we've got our Balthasar gold ready, we're just going to paint over the gemstone on its forehead. And then very carefully into his eyes on either side of the mask. And once that dries, then we're going to finish that up with our Spirit Stone red. Now that our Balthasar gold is fully painted, it's time to do the gemstones. Get a little bit of paint on your brush. Start at the bottom and pull up, and that'll give it that beautiful gemstone quality. Try not to paint it on your tusk, otherwise your tusks look like gemstones. Alright, there we go. That puts that gemstone demonic look of our Hellephant into play, and the only thing left to do now is to paint his base. As I've done with all of my previous Massive Darkness guys, we're going to go back to Dawnstone. We're going to paint that stony gray, so they can hide in shadows. And there you go. That is, with our finished base, that is one greater roaming monster of the Hellephant. I think he looks pretty cool. And fairly similar to the card. I think he's going to add a lot of definition to our gaming table when we put him on there. And I think he's going to have to be a centerpiece and probably troublemaker for us for many times to come. Thanks for watching.